Hello and welcome to Weekly MTG, the only Magic news show from inside the building. We have a great show today, as always. Today we are talking esports, both looking back at 2019, which was a big transition year for us. We did some things. And looking forward to what's coming up in 2020. So with us we have Ben Drago, who is in charge of our tabletop side. And then standing in for Bear, who is at Mythic Championship 7 happening this weekend. He's there right now, is Elaine Chase.
Hi, everybody. I was just saying I should have gotten a bear hoodie or something. So
Yeah,
I could
you
have been
really
the bear,
should have.
The
Yeah.
bear stand-in. Yeah.
I feel like that was a miss.
Elaine has done no prep for this show whatsoever.
Next
man.
time.
Next time.
That means you can get her. She's not ready. Send us your questions in chat.
Yeah.
We'll get her.
Get him.
We are going to ask them questions from you, the audience. I have a bunch of questions, too, that we're going to go through. But if you have questions for Ben or Elaine, put them in chat, and we'll see if we can get to them. In the meantime, Steve's got some news.
There is some news. This week, on Monday, in fact, we did our regular Pioneer BNR. So we're going to throw up a graphic right now so you can check out exactly what got banned and or restricted, in this case just banned. Once Upon a Time, now banned in Pioneer. Field of the Dead, also now banned in Pioneer. Smuggler's Copter, banned in Standard in its time, now banned in Pioneer. 3 extremely powerful cards that enabled some extremely powerful strategies. Now that they're gone, we'll see how the meta shakes out and see if anything else gets on tap for next week. As you know, banned and restricted for Pioneer happens every Monday, sometime in the afternoon, usually. That is not the only thing that's going on this week. We also have Secret Lair, the new sub-brand of Magic. Currently on sale right now is Restless in Peace. You get Bloodghast, Golgari Thug, and Life from the Loam in a wonderful art treatment by Dan Mumford. That is on sale right now at secretlair.wizards.com for the price of $29.99 plus taxes and shipping and fees. That is not the only Secret Lair that's on sale this week. It's a whole week. Tomorrow, you're going to see the next drop, which is Seeing Visions, 4 different interpretations of Serum Visions, a modern mainstay. After that, we're going to see... Although you plebs might...
Those are some good explosion
yeah,
sounds.
some of you, the plebs out there might actually call it explosion sounds with brackets, which is the, of course, not great way to say it, but you got to do the whole explosion sound. 5 different goblin cards. You can see them on the screen there. And of course, we still have more. There's still more. The next one is Kaleidoscope Killers. 3 5-color commanders, Reaper King, Sliver Overlord, and the Dragon, all in foil in that special art treatment. And finally, to wrap up the Secret Lair drop series, we're looking at OMG Kitties.
OMG.
OMG Kitties. 5 Commander-ready kitty cards and 2 incredible cat tokens. The cards are all in foil. All of the cards, I believe, are in foil. I don't believe that the tokens are.
Elaine, how many of these are you ordering?
All of them?
I think you're only
All of
allowed
them.
10, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you do love Secret Lair and you're interested in picking those up, please look through the week. They are all time-boxed to demand, meaning that if you place your order within the 24-hour period that all of them are available, you will receive your order, which is really cool. It's a new thing that we're doing. Again, that web address is secretlair.wizards.com. However, maybe you like the art on the cards, you're not really that interested in ordering the cards. Our friends at Ultra Pro have a special product just for you, which we have here on the table. In these 8 playmat tubes are, unsurprisingly, 8 playmats that you can get at, I believe, shop.ultrapro.com.
Sounds right.
Shop.ultrapro.com as part of a special holiday bundle only on sale this week for $199.99 plus shipping, taxes,
I
taxes,
think
and
Elaine
fees.
wanted to open up.
It's this
That
one
one.
that she wants
That
to
one.
open up. So this, here, Elaine, I'll there you go.
This is beautiful.
This is the playmat for Bitter Blossom Dreams. And we'll have Elaine Chase showcase this.
Look at this.
We'll open up
that's-
all of these for you.
Yeah, so that's the panorama art of the Bitter Blossom and the tokens that go with it.
Gotta get the right angle. There we go. There we go. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know this, I've got a huge version of this up in my office, and it's spectacular. So it's lovely.
We also have the drop that was on sale yesterday, Eldraine Wonderland, which was snow-covered lands in the plain of Eldraine. Let's see all 5 of them right here.
Oh, this
Really
one's
lovely.
from the.
This one's from
the one
today.
that's on the sale today. Yeah.
Restless in Peace.
Yeah, please do.
Restless in Peace.
And there's a second Restless in Peace. If you're a fan of the Bloodghast art, but you really prefer the Life from the Loam art, well, we have you covered with that as well. Once again, these playmats are only available as a bundle on shop.ultrapro.com. So take a look over there for those wonderful, wonderful playmat bundles.
We might as well open up all of these.
We
Why
might
not?
as well, right?
Why not?
Wait, can I do kitties? Where's kitties?
Kitties is the last one on there. So
Is this?
Yeah, you got the kitties.
All right, I'll trade.
Oh, this is
Oh,
the,
yes.
this is
You
the
get a
Serum
fun-
Visions.
Seeing Visions, one of the Seeing Visions Serum Visions.
Yeah, this is the
We also have a
weird jellyfish thing going on. Oh, there's a cat on this one.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
There's a cat on that one? Oh my god, I never even
Look at
noticed that. It's
Yeah,
his earring.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is
I
what's cool
never
about
even
these
noticed
playmats.
that.
You
Now
get to see
Elaine,
detail.
yeah, it's got the art really
Wow.
blown up.
And then here's the here are the 5 goblins from.
All right, and then here's the kitties. Look how cute. Look how cute.
Extremely cute. Arabo, I believe is the name of that kitty.
And we got
And
Ooh.
that is the Dragon from
Dragon.
Kaleidoscope Killers,
Yeah.
which will be on sale soon. So again, these are all available from our friends at Ultra Pro. If you go to shop.ultrapro.com, $199.99 plus taxes,
them,
shipping,
yep.
applicable fees, and you get every single one of these, and they all come in in one of these lovely clear plastic playmat protectors.
Yeah.
So you'll get 8
Good for protection or for giving to your child
Exactly.
to like whack things harmlessly.
Exactly, or great for gifts if you're interested in only one. They of course playmats make great gifts for any Magic fan. But yeah, you've got the playmats on
You know
sale
what you
now.
could do?
What could you do?
You could take the playmats you're using right now, buy the bundle, upgrade your own playmats,
And then
to
put the
these,
And give
and then
then
give
put
the other
your
ones
old
away.
playmats in the tube and gift those. Just saying.
That's a thing that you could do. Elaine really wants the Bitter Blossom one. You should know that Elaine really wants the Bitter Blossom one. So
I don't even see it on the table anymore right
it's just
now. I think
there's
it's
so
already
much.
gone.
There's so much.
Actually, don't see it on the table.
It's very
It's
first
under
one.
there.
It's under there.
He's hidden it.
I might have hidden it.
As we said, shop.ultrapro.com for the playmat bundle. Only available, I believe, until the end of the week. There's a timer counting down on the product page.
Okay.
And then you've also got Secret Lair on sale up through next Monday.
Yes.
Monday the
9th.
9th.
Yeah.
9th. I'm good at dates. I'm good at dates.
I mean, the thing I love about Secret Lair is that out of all of these, like, you might not like all of them, but there's like 1 or 2 for almost everybody that they're like, oh my god, that's the one. Like, I really love Bitter Blossom and Kitties. Like, that's totally my jam. But there's other people like they're loving the 5-color legends, and you know, there's something for everybody.
It's cool, and it's a cool thing that we're doing this week. And again, 24 hours after that period is over, you can't order them anymore. They're gone. So if you're interested in Secret Lair, encourage you to check out secretlair.wizards.com for more information and a little bit of a look at what else is coming.
Yeah. Speaking of what's coming,
Oh, yeah. Good transition.
thanks.
Good
Steve.
transition. Oh, yeah.
Man, I need a mug.
I know. I get
No,
lost.
How many-
Only Steve and I
every
could
time
have
they
these.
How
Yo,
many
up.
times do you have to be on the show to get a mug?
It took us about
50 shows.
Oh man, I've only
shows.
done like 2. Can I get
Yeah.
a punch card?
we should make punch cards. That's a good idea. When you get your 50th punch, we'll make you a mug.
Well, we'll have you back at the end of every year to talk about esports.
yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then,
exactly.
you know,
Eventually.
48 more years.
Eventually, yeah.
So we want to talk about, this was, like I said, the biggest year for Magic Esports and pro play that we've ever had for a number of reasons.
Fact check, you've actually been around for most of
all of it.
everybody's been-
Yeah.
I played in the very first Pro Tour
Biggest,
in
what do you think?
1996.
In your professional estimation, biggest year?
It was the biggest year,
Okay.
for sure.
Just want to get a fact check in there. Come on. Yeah, it's important.
So yeah, we're gonna look back at this year. We're gonna look forward to next year. Again, if you have questions, put them in chat. We'll try to get to them. But we're gonna talk about a lot of stuff today. So let's start with your highlights from 2019. It was a big year, not without, there were lows, there were highs, but let's start on a positive note. What were your highlights, Ben? What were some of your highlights from this year?
Well, on a personal note, my biggest one is joining Wizards. Right?
Oh, right, you started this year.
Started in February.
Yeah.
Yep.
So having done my full year, like I've played Magic since the beginning. I actually celebrated my 20-year anniversary as a judge last month. So
Happy
I got
anniversary.
certified at the GP in San Diego 20 years ago. I worked that show. I kept that show. I was scorekeeper for that show. And Scott Larrabee was there too, right? So like we've been doing
you
this
guys
for
have
a
been
long time.
around.
Yeah.
Well, happy anniversary, Ben.
Thank you. Yeah, we were chatting how our kids are closer to our age when we were from that event than we are now.
Yes.
So Yeah, that's so. No, I'm super excited to be here. It's been an amazing year. The team is great. So definitely a big highlight for me this year.
Very cool.
He even started in the middle of a snowstorm. Like his first day of work, like the office was closed. So I had to call him up and be like, "Hey, I know you're starting today, but like maybe don't drive into the office."
Somebody who come from Texas and Southern California, I had no idea what to do.
Like,
What is this? I've
Yeah,
seen
it's
it
a
on
bit of an
TV.
adjustment.
But what do I do?
And it's not even that bad here.
So for me, the biggest highlight of the year had to have been the Invitational in March, and that was the real kickoff of the spectacle and the scope that we're trying to achieve with MTG Arena and the esports space. And when that show finished and we had that esports stadium hall filled at PAX East in Boston, and Mengucci's up there and he's got the trophy up there, like that moment was it made everything real, and it really showed me kind of what we were working for and what we were trying to achieve and where we were trying to bring professional Magic play.
Okay. Besides your personal starting, what else were highlights for you, Ben?
Not letting me off easy. I mean, this year, joined watching watching Arena develop, understanding how tabletop and Arena interact. Like those were all exciting moments. And then since then we've announced the Players Tour, which is for the first time since I started judging, this revisioning of what competitive play means on for tabletop Magic, and so doing all that work and then rolling out to the players and seeing kind of that excitement about being invigorated, go and play Magic, which is one of the big reasons we're here and what we do and what drives what we do every day.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more and dig into the rise of Arena, because this is the first year we've really had pro level digital play. Elaine, what has that meant to you? How was that adjustment?
It's been a wild ride. So to kind of give the context for those who might not kind of have been along for the whole ride, or kind of seen a little bit behind the curtain. So MTG Arena went into open beta last fall, right, in September. And our intent always had been to build this for a digital esports experience, right? Magic has had 25 plus years of competitive history, right? We really wanted to take that competitive legacy and bring it forward into this new world of digital esports. And so we built MTG Arena with that very much in mind. But originally we were expecting to kind of not have everything ready and in place until around now. But then we came into open beta, and the open beta was just so successful, right? It was above and beyond what we expected. There was just huge amounts of momentum for it. People really wanted to start digging in and playing right away. And so I transitioned off of leading the Magic brand team into kickstarting the esports initiative. And so that was in October last year, so a little over a year ago. And the timeline was get from October to December 6th, which was the Video Game Awards announcement, which we did, which was now literally a year ago, right now. And then, work toward having that kickoff at the Invitational in March. So it's been a crazy wild ride, especially since we've had to do a lot of work in building the structures as we go. Right, earlier in the year, I put out a blog article to everybody that said, "Hey, look, we're going to be building this as we go throughout the year, and it's going to take us some time." And yeah, it's going to be frustrating, and it was super frustrating. It was just as frustrating for us inside the building as it was for the people outside, to not have all the answers at the beginning of the year. But we really needed to kind of take our time and build it as we went and learn a lot. And we did a lot of learning this year. And that really came into fruition when you see what the new plan is as we go into our partial season for next year and then into our first full season.
So, Ben, what were some of the challenges that you faced in navigating, intertwining the digital space and the tabletop space? Because you're specifically in charge of the tabletop space, but that doesn't mean you don't interact, that you and Bear literally sit back to back and talk every day. So what were some of the challenges there?
One of the biggest challenges we face, and it's ever present, right? Which is there just aren't enough weekends during the year. So we are always trying to create these schedules where We want to follow new releases and make sure players are excited to play with new expansions, while also making sure that there's good timing for events and people have time to prepare. We get to see how like metagames develop and things like that. So really finding that balance between the time, what each what arena needs, what tabletop needs. We ran 48 Magic Fests this year, a lot of Grand Prix. So the fact like every weekend is full essentially, and finding that right balance where we try to do the right thing for everybody, try to make sure players have a great experience, which is one of the things that drives every decision we make. Is it's tricky. We always kind of look back and like wish we had tweaked things a little bit different, but it is something we always kind of work to continually improve, like what it feels like to be a player. And no matter if you're playing in your first Players Tour, or if it's your 50th or your 100th, like you have that great balance, and you're still enjoying playing Magic.
Yeah. Now, since you brought it up, what are some of the things that you wish you guys had done differently, or wish had gone differently from the past year?
And you can't say I got employed at Wizards this year. Can't say that.
I wish we had tiebreakers out earlier. Like that's been on our back burner to-do list. And kind of like everything else this year, everything kind of ended up hitting at the the last possible moment we could put this out there is here, right, and have that out. So I do wish we had that in advance, because it's always better for players to understand the rules that they're playing by, before they get there. So I wish we had that earlier. Honestly, though. While there's things that we are changing, I'm glad that we tried a lot of stuff this year, because if we didn't try this stuff, we wouldn't have learned. So I'm gonna twist your question on its head a little bit and be like, well, what did we learn and how? I'm doing it anyway. I'm doing it anyway.
Elaine, but this is my show.
I'm doing it anyway. So, here's a really good example of something that we're doing differently on purpose, which is a year ago we thought it was going to be super important to figure out how do we combine digital and tabletop into one competitive experience that really connected both. And as the year went on, it became super apparent that the needs for invitations and for points and for all the different elements of it, how do you string people from one event to the other, how do you qualify for these events, that the needs between tabletop and digital were just so distinctly different from each other that by us trying to smash them together this year, it caused a lot of friction and a lot of conflict, right? And I think you can see that in a lot of the conversation that's going on about what does this mean for people who are trying to get into Rivals and into the MPL this year, based on who got invited to which events, and how hard is it to get invited to an arena event versus how hard is it to get a tabletop event, like how do the points get put out. And so one of the takeaways that we had was, when we move forward into next year, is that we really want to separate those two systems, and we want to let tabletop do what's right for tabletop, and let MTG Arena do what's right for MTG Arena. And then the places where those two things connect is with the MPL and with the Rivals, and at the World Championships at the end of the season, right? That's where the connector points are. But instead of trying to smoosh them all together, right, really let each program do what it needs to do for the players on that platform.
And Ben, obviously you hit the ground running this year and had to do a lot of learning right out of the gate. Is there anything you wish had gone differently, or that you had done differently, that knowing what you know now?
Well, I think we're all we all remember back in the early summer where people were just they were anxious for news, they wanted to know what was happening, and we were all working really hard to figure out what tabletop competitive play is, what MTG Arena competitive play is, and when we finally came out with the announcement, reception I think was great. We had a very comprehensive plan. People understood why we were making the decisions we were making, but kind of that time when we weren't talking about it, I understand why people were feeling the way they did, and we've already tried to address that. We're sitting here today talking about things we're working on, so that even though decisions might not be final, they understand what's going on, and make it very clear that we're listening to players and their concerns. The monthly esports updates that Bear and I do, again, those are the same. We're putting out things that are in discussion, putting in things that aren't final. We're using that as opportunity to kind of explain why we made these decisions. So that there isn't this kind of time where people are uncertain, or people don't understand why we made decisions. So like just being more transparent, being more connected to our community. We listen a lot. Like, I mean, that is, you know, something that's very true.
People
and I think-
underestimate how much.
Yes.
Yeah, the thing
Pro-
the thing that I'm very fond
Yeah.
of saying is just because we don't respond to you doesn't mean that we don't hear you.
Yeah, it's super true.
Yeah.
It's super true. So, and especially when it's like constructive feedback, like coming from people who are telling us things that because they love the game, because they want to participate. Those messages are super loud. We definitely pay attention to
Now,
them.
here's the tricky part, though, is that those times when people don't agree on what the best path forward is, right? So a really surprising experience for me is as we went through this, you know, we'd bring in the MPL players, you know, we'd have, you know, big meetings and things like that. And almost every single question when it got to like decision points, I would be like, okay, group of people, there's clearly these two conflicting options that we could go with, right? Like it's option A, option B. How many of you prefer option A? How many prefer option B? And it would just be split like half and half right down the middle, right? And there's really compelling arguments on both sides, right? And I think that was a really interesting learning throughout all of this too, is that I don't know that there are right answers in building this program, right? I think there's understanding what we're trying to achieve, which ultimately is more ways for more players to compete, right? In meaningful ways, whatever that means for them. Like that's really what we're trying to achieve. But at every one of those points, like there's, you know, you go left or right, and you're going to take care of some people better on one side and leave some people out on the other side, right? No matter what you do. And so trying to kind of thread that needle and understand where the trade-offs are and make the choices that are best for the most people most of the time. That's really kind of how we navigate through.
I want to linger on that the stated goal of more ways to play for more players in significant events, because, like you said, that's a driving factor in a lot of the decisions you make. As the communications guy, I don't know that we've made that clear. But can you talk about? Do you have an example, either of you, of when you had two options in front of you, and that was the driving one that made you choose one or the other?
Honestly, I think it was the whole evolution of how the Players Tour turned into a regionalized system, right? Ben and I had lots of conversations about, you know, how can we scale with how big Magic has gotten today, which is bigger than it's ever been before, and how can we plan for Magic's future, right? We didn't want to set up a system that worked just for today, but then, you know, 2 years from now, the whole thing's just not going to work anymore. And the old system just couldn't accommodate more opportunities for people to qualify and play, right? It just couldn't. And you start looking at the invite list that the PTs would have, and so many of them were eaten up by, you know, people who are being carried over from either the pro club or from prior, you know, finishes, right, and having that moved over, and then, well, what's left for, you know, GP qualifiers? What's left for store level qualifiers? What's left for the people who live in smaller markets, right? Like all of those pieces, and when you add up the numbers, they just don't work anymore, right? So I think for us, one of those big breakthroughs was, well, the only way we're going to be able to provide more Magic for people is if we actually regionalize the system.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And we're already the benefits that we're already seeing right now is that because we've opened up the number of opportunities to qualify, we've been able to expand like where qualifiers happen. There's more of them all around the world. We've been able to integrate tournament series like the SCG Open into the qualifying system, which, you know, huge number of this huge structure with tons of events and dedicated fans. It makes us really happy that that's kind of part now of the Players Tour.
And you've not only integrated them, but it's given rise to at least one new one that I can think of, but maybe a couple you would know better than I would.
In LATAM, right?
Yeah, the LATAM Magic Series, you know, in the first qualifying round, they've had almost like 3,000 players participate in it.
Wow.
It's been fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, Lily's been doing a really great job with that series.
Yeah.
So definitely already seen benefits from this opportunity that are created by scaling up, creating more opportunities to play.
And we're looking forward to extending those out to more organizers, right? Like, you know, it's out there as a tool for people to build, so they can have more regionally appropriate series, things that make sense within their regions. So we're very much looking forward to seeing that expand out throughout the world with a lot more different series.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about the formation of the Magic Pro League, because this was the first year First of all, how do you think it went, Elaine?
I think resoundingly overall, it went really well. Now, that's not to say it was perfect, and that's not to say it wasn't without hiccups. But when I'm looking back over the course of the year, and I'm looking at this inaugural crew of just top level players, and the growth that they've seen as both individual players and as a cohort has been really phenomenal to see, right? We started off the beginning of the year with our goal here is to create a group of professional players who together can prove kind of their value in an esports ecosystem, to open up more opportunities for them to play more, to get more sponsorships, all of that, to increase their ability to market themselves and make themselves valuable. Provide a group of players that is an aspiration for other players to get to, provide really top tier deck tech as things evolve, as the metagame evolves over the year. We started the year with hardly any of these folks streaming, and now we're hitting the end of the year, and there's some folks who I think might be streamers for a very long time doing very successful work, whether or not they're in the MPL next year, right? Finding a whole new avenue and communities and that they can go out and play and express themselves. And we're hitting this end of the year, and we're having these conversations that are real sports conversations. Like, I can't remember another season that Magic has ended where right now, today, people are like, oh my gosh, let's take a look who's on the bubble. Like, if it falls this way, these people are in. If it falls that way, then these people are in. And these people have to have a really good, event to be able to make it, right? And looking at people's stats and where they are. And ultimately, it highlighted a lot more of these people as individuals than we've ever been able to cover under the old system. The old system, we talked about you when you won.
Yep.
And that's it. And then when you didn't win, we just didn't put your feature matches up, and we didn't talk about you anymore. But now we've got this group that we followed all year through their ups and their downs, through their personal lives. Like, we got mango cuisine out of this year. like, can you imagine? We didn't have that last year.
Good point.
Like, it wasn't a thing.
How did we ever do without?
So right. So I mean, if I were going to say what's the highlight of the year, mango cuisine.
Mango cuisine. And Draven Gucci will be
And what it
thrilled
represents, yeah.
to hear that. Ben, what are your thoughts?
Well, for me, I was on the outside when the NPL was announced, and remember being very excited. Also a little scared. So I was working for a competitor for Magic at the time, and seeing just kind of like the scale that Wizards, they didn't do it. We didn't do it small. Like, the NPL, they made a statement. They supported it in a way that's no other tabletop esport has done, and that was really exciting. And so, as a fan of Magic, seeing it from the outside and seeing the excitement, and people really looking at Magic in a different way, I don't know if it's evolution or leveled up, but that was that feeling from that announcement, and from that moment, and then following it from both the outside, the competitive part, but just the insides. We've learned so much about how how our fans and our players interact with MPL and the race, for the end of the year. All of those moments have been great. I'm really excited about what happens next.
Okay. I do want to move into 2020, talking about the future, but we have
Heard of it.
It's
Yeah,
done.
heard of it.
There's one topic that kind of bridges that gap. We've announced it. It started. There's a lot of excitement, but a lot of the Premier Play stuff is happening in 2020, and that's the advent of Pioneer. So Ben, what has that been like for you?
Such an amazing surprise. When we were talking about,
Should be called surprising here.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve.
Steve's
now I
here
can
too,
remember what I'm
everyone.
talking about.
Guys, you don't know what it's like to sit by him. That's all I have to say. You get this once a week. We get it every day.
Just wrecked by bad
They
puns.
should be so lucky.
Close
Elaine.
your door, Elaine.
Noise canceling headphones is highly recommended. It was we were designing the schedule for next year, and we wanted to make sure that we gave Pioneer time to kind of grow and for people to play it, to get excited by it. Turns out we could have done everything so much faster, because people were immediately excited by it. It's a great format. It's been awesome to watch kind of as players experiment on Magic Online with the decks and as it evolves almost every week, especially when we update the ban restricted list for Pioneer. So I think that next year we'll be supporting standard, Pioneer, and Modern on tabletop events, and I think that's going to be a really healthy and a really exciting kind of year for competitive players across all 3 formats.
Okay. Elaine, you've been around for a couple other times we've added formats, changed formats. How did this compare?
This one, I have to say, this was the most well-received format switch over that I think we've done. Like, I was here, when we switched over from extended to modern in the first place. It's change is always hard, right? It's always scary, and you don't know what's going to be there. You don't know what's going to happen next, and especially since modern had been coming off such a super high, with Modern Horizons and all the different modern support that had happened. Coming in and saying, okay, no, we're gonna introduce a new format and kind of that in between spot. But I think the community was just really ready for it. Like, they were ready for the new challenge. They were ready for kind of that new scope of how do I go in and bust this open and figure out how this whole thing works. And then also recognizing that we were able this time around to continue the support for modern while we added this one. And I think that was a really, really big change. Like last time when we did the extended to modern switchover, it was really a switchover, right? Yeah. It was like, we're done with extended. Like, this isn't working anymore. We're throwing it away. We're going to give you this new thing. And I think this time the fact that we're adding, and I think that we've learned that we can add more, and the community can certainly support adding more. You just look at how big the Commander community has gotten, right? And it doesn't mean that standard has gone away, right? Yep. It doesn't mean that modern has gone away. It just means that there's also a big Commander community and lots of people who play Commander. And so being able to add instead of replace, I think that made a huge difference.
Okay. Something I want to touch on for 2020 now, we're going to get to it later, but let's touch on it now because it's a lot of what chat is talking about. So I want to talk about, first of all, the difference between the MPL and the MPL Weekly show.
Oh, yeah.
So talk a little bit about the difference.
So one of the things we were excited about with the formation of the MPL is that we could take these players and kind of pit them against each other and in weekly play and have a weekly evolving metagame that happened, right? And kind of show that excitement of super high level play, right? Like the highest level of play on a weekly basis as the metagame evolves. We're still in love with the idea and we still want to do it. But we definitely learned a lot this year, just in terms of where we are in terms of limitations of both the program itself and our ability to do live gameplay. Like, we hear loud and clear that the thing that's going to unlock this for us is live gameplay. And the thing that's going to unlock live gameplay for us is being able to have spectator mode so that we can actually broadcast the matches, right, as they're going and not have to rely on individual players' streams. But there's a lot going on in MTG Arena. There's still a lot of work that they're doing to help deliver all the features that we want across the board. And so until we can kind of get those tools for us to be able to make the show the way we want it to be, we're just going to put that weekly MPL play on hiatus for a little bit and kind of give us a chance to develop a little bit more of the tools in the back end that we need to make the show that we want. That said, I would still expect to see the MPL players playing an awful lot in between the championships events, right? You've seen them playing in things like Twitch Rivals and all those other really awesome partner events that external folks are sponsoring. I saw some questions pop up in social media on like, hey, well, if you're not doing a weekly show, like, could somebody else do a weekly show? And the answer is, well, absolutely. It'd be great, So you'll see them do a lot. The other big piece of feedback we had from the MPL players themselves is that they had a lot of competition this year, and they just kind of went, from prep to event to prep to event to prep to event, just on this constant grind. And we want to make sure that our pro players have the ability to bring their best game to the table all the time. And we think we just kind of needed to take a little bit of a breather to kind of reset kind of what that cadence of competition is for folks.
That makes sense. Okay, so let's go back to the broader question after I skipped ahead a little bit. Talk about what 2020 is going to be like for players, fans, competitors compared to 2019.
It's going to be stable. That's my word. Stable. It's going to be stable. We have the program. It's in place. We have the program. We have the events. They're scheduled. We have dates, we have we have budget, we have the whole thing. It's stable.
Yeah.
And what I'm really looking forward to is seeing how this program works and how players respond to it, knowing what the full scope of the program is, right? Like we really asked players to kind of go out on a limb and show a really large amount of faith in us last year as we were going forward. But this year we've got the program and people can commit and get into it and figure out what's the right way for them to engage, right? And for everybody that's going to be different. But that's, for me, that's really what I'm looking for this year, stability.
Okay. Ben?
I'm really excited for the Player Store to bring back these regional stories again. Like players, not only do we have more people able to qualify, but because most of them will play in the Player Store in the Americas, in Europe, and Asia Pacific, like those kind of rivalries, that kind of hometown heroes, seeing people for the first time, and who might like have a breakout year that we wouldn't have known about before. Like those are that's one of these additional benefits from scaling and getting bigger. You create more opportunities for new stars, and that we don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's going to see new faces this year that might become mainstays on the Players Tour and maybe in Rivals and MPL in the future, coming out because of these new opportunities we created.
Okay. Since you brought up Rivals, how excited are you guys for Rivals?
I'm so excited for Rivals.
I know that's
so cool.
That is the softballest of softballs.
I'm so excited
I
for
can
Rivals.
pitch to you,
I mean,
but-
Rivals, it was a thing that we've had in our head for this whole past year, right?
Yeah.
Like we know that there needs to be a developmental layer, right? Like we need that layer that gives people kind of a steady cadence of invites, right? That lets them know that they're going to be able to play over a longer period of time without having to qualify from event to event. The thing I really like about it is that the more you play in high-level competition, the better you get. Right, that's just true. And so giving kind of that next tier of player the opportunity to have a stable suite of events that they're playing in all year and really work toward becoming the best player they can be, right, and then being able to reach up into the MPL eventually, as the goal. I find that really exciting.
Yeah. Ben?
I think Elaine covered most of it. And it is going back to the theme of stability, right? Like we want both our players and our fans to feel like they know what the rewards they're going to earn by their commitment, their skill, the time they put into it. And Rivals is one of those important constructs that helps build stability, helps build confidence, and gives people another thing to shoot for, as they get better and better. It's not just about adding a layer, but creating an additional opportunity for even more players to kind of show up and prove how good they are.
Okay. We're getting a couple questions on specific things, asking how can you improve. But let's ask the general question first. What in 2020 are you guys looking to improve or continue figuring out or work on specifically?
So one of the things, and this veering a little bit off from competitive play, but we've been testing commander focus experiences. So the Command Zone at Magic Fests, we did standalone Commander Fests in Seattle and Chicago.
I went to Seattle. I did the Command Fest in Las Vegas. They were all really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's one more coming up in Washington D.C. Next week. Huge positive response to those experiences, and so thinking about how we incorporate them, whether it's expanding this, how they show up at Magic Fests. Should Command Fest continue to be like this standalone experience? But again, it's acknowledging the fact that just like there are modern players or pioneer players, people who love Booster Draft, there are people who love to play Commander, and giving them that opportunity to play Magic the way they love to play Magic is incredibly important. And there are these great opportunities where we kind of tie it into these experiences like Magic Fest that we've already, we've been doing this for literally decades, and it's kind of adding and evolving that experience. That's adding I never want to kind of like rest on our laurels. Like I think it's kind of great to always experiment and try new things, and I think this has been one of the really successful experiments from this year.
For me, I'm looking forward to trying to kind of flesh out and evolve kind of the qualifying series and events, both for tabletop and for MTG Arena, right? Taking that concept of the series that we have, like that we have Star City Games in the LatAm series, and expanding that out to other places and in other regions and other ways to play, and then also figuring out on the MTG Arena side, like how do we track monthly points? Like how can we, get people to be able to demonstrate success over time that can lead into something bigger? And those are things, that are going to take some iteration, right, and some work. But that they're two very key components to the long-term vision of both halves of the program.
Yeah, makes sense. One specific thing that we know we're changing, because we announced it yesterday, Ben, is the removal of GP buys. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So Grand Prix buys, we've been my team has been looking at it for years, so when I started back in February, it actually was one of the first topics we discussed. And
don't come into the office today. also GP
buys. Yeah.
Yep.
And GP buys started during the Pro Tour. They were created when there was just a fraction of the number of people playing Magic at this level than there is today. And it definitely created some challenges for us. Like, because so many players had buys, like Grand Prix were literally like 2 or 3 hours longer than they would need to be if there were no buys, because you just have to run extra rounds in order to get to a top 8.
I remember Grand Prix Vegas. I used to do coverage, and I remember the first Grand Prix Vegas, we were sitting there typing from what happened in the finals, and they were literally kicking us out of the venue because the venue was closing. Yeah, they run long. They can go long.
They can go long, and these make them longer. They create a bunch of complexities in like just tournament operations that making sure that you have fair pairings, making sure like the Swiss the way like Swiss pairings actually works can break down if there's too many people with buys. And then it really limited us from kind of looking at the way we structured large tournaments like Grand Prix and looking at different ways. Can you run them with flights? Can you run multiple day ones, like those kind of things? Having buys there kind of restricts like what those kind of opportunities to experiment are. And from talking to a bunch of players about it, like they felt like buys only needed to exist if everybody had access to them, or but if no one did, then you still have a very fair, very competitive event. So we think those things, plus the fact that we're looking at using with the fractional invite system, kind of offering players who just consistently do well the ability to qualify for the Players Tour, like that in some ways fills in that gap of just recognizing consistency. And between those two things, we're going to try. I think this is one of those things I talked about experimentation earlier. We believe that this is the right decision. We're not being kind of frivolous about it, but we will look at like how tournaments run. Does it still, do we still feel players who are great at Magic still doing well, and make sure that it meets our goals. But we're feeling pretty confident this is the right decision, and we'll use it this year and evaluate.
Yeah. I think this is a really good example of what I was saying earlier about how you hit these decision points and there's clear pros and cons on both sides, right? Like there were real clear pros for having Grand Prix buys. That's why we did them, right? And that's why they were so successful. But there are clear cons to them also, right? There's clear pros to not having them, but there's also negatives in there. So we hit those decision points where we need to figure, all right, well, what is the best experience that allows the most players to play the most, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we went, right? We went with the decision that said, yeah, the people who are used to getting these buys or think that, having the ability to kind of skip those first rounds against, people who might have less tuned decks or whatever, gives them a better competitive advantage. Instead, opening it up so that we can accommodate more people at these events, right? And not have them be, take 1 billion hours and try to experiment with different formats and make it, a little bit more of a fair playing field for everyone, and that's why we ended up on the decision that we did.
Okay. Also getting a lot of chatter about, there's a lot of variations of different questions about local game stores and integrating that into play. So talk a little bit about your guys' philosophy on these tournaments at local game stores, maybe anything you're working on, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I think one of the really big things to keep in mind as we talk about the local game store is the evolution of that WPN program that's happened this year, and kind of where is that going and where is that taking things with the evolution of the premium stores. Our local game stores are the foundation of the bulk of the Magic community, period, right? And I know a lot of people have been, kind of a little bit worried of, is Wizards turning its back on the local game stores? And the answer to that is an absolute no. Absolutely not. The local game stores are the foundation of what we do. But the way that local game stores have been operating has drastically changed over the last couple years compared to where they were 20 years ago. And we're not in a scenario where it's like, oh, to keep afloat the local game stores and need to have a Grand Prix buy. Instead, we're going back to a world where we're able to give local game stores WPN qualifiers and things like that, right? They're building robust communities around formats like Commander. We're giving them more opportunities to play with things like adding, Pioneer into their mix and have things go that way. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is trying to make what is the best store community environment and how can we make that work the best? And the answer to that is not, oh, there has to be a Grand Prix buy to make that work, right? That element isn't part of it.
Yeah, Ben, what are some of the challenges in incorporating local game stores into this system?
It's anytime you scale up, you're just going to have those challenges of whether it's education or training, making sure that stores and their staff that are running these events know what's expected, know how to run them. We made so many changes this year, like just the terminology, like making sure people understand what these different flavors of qualifiers are and how they operate. Some of that will just take time, and so it is just kind of making sure that our partners as stores, tournament staff, and our players understand what we're trying to do, and we just kind of continue to be kind of clear and consistent about how what the player's experience should be, because that's really kind of what drives these structures, drives who we partner with, is that making sure that no matter where you play, you have a great time. You're playing in a fair tournament, and you have the same opportunity to succeed anywhere in the world.
Yep. I'm going to take a step back to GP buys because there's a little discussion going on in chat right now. Can you explain why buys make Grand Prix events go longer?
So it's when you're essentially adding the way Swiss pairings work. The super short version is each round you're pairing players with the same record together. So at the beginning of the tournament, everyone's 0-0, and then after the first round, half the players have a win, half the players have a loss, and kind of each round it looks exactly like a triangle. So after 2 rounds, 25% of the people are undefeated. After 3 rounds, 12% of the players are undefeated. With buys, what it does is it changes, after 3 rounds, you don't have 12% of the people are undefeated. You add in all the people who got 3 buys, and now 20% of the tournament
You actually go up in
Right,
the number of undefeateds rather than down.
Right. So to take that number, that players and how they've already kind of been layered out, and get to a top 8 in a fair way, where your record matters and you're not getting cut out by tiebreakers, which is something we always try to avoid. You just have to play more rounds because you've inserted people with 3 wins at a point where in the natural progress of a Swiss tournament, you wouldn't have that many people at that record.
Okay.
So
it adds rounds.
It adds rounds.
Yeah.
If your goal is to make sure you have a top 8 cut, which feels fair, you're adding more rounds.
Yeah.
And by fair, I mean like not just being determined by tiebreakers.
Well, because hypothetically, you could end the tournament after 10 rounds. You just
Have
have
11 people
You'd
are
have like a
undefeated.
bunch of people who got cut off by tiebreakers
Yes.
at that point. Yeah. Yep. That makes sense. Okay, I think that covers most of the questions we had from chat, most of the questions that we wanted to talk about. Let's leave it with let's go sappy here. Your wish for 2020 Magic Esports.
I guess my wish, it goes back to, I do really want to provide the most play opportunities for the most people that makes them the most happy, right? And I'm going to be really clear, like I can't make all the people happy all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just not possible, right?
Yep.
Different people have different goals, people have different
I just want to play
priorities.
Muldrifter
Right.
every weekend.
Yeah, no, that's
Elaine.
not fun for the other
Why
people,
can't you-
Blake.
Well, playing with me is often not fun for other people, but that's...
Whenever you're
But
playing
I-
against Blake, main deck Notion Thief.
But I
trust me.
do really want people, kind of as they look back, kind of at this time next year, right? I would love for the competitive play community to take a look back at next year, at this time next year, and think to themselves, wow, I played more Magic that was more meaningful to me than I ever have before, right? And I know that people have to kind of live through it to get there, and we're going to keep iterating if that's not true by this time next year. There you go.
Ben?
I think I talked about this last time I was here, but kind of the vision that's driving my team is that we want competitive players to be able to play in an event that's relevant to them every week. Like that's kind of our long-term goal. Like there is just so much Magic that, every Saturday you have something to go play that excites you, that you feel, is a challenge. And so by creating more opportunities to play, that's why we're doing it, because we think people love this game. I think it's been proven pretty clearly over the years, and part of that love is being able to people who thrive on competition, you need the chance to play. So just creating more and more opportunities all over the world until we get to that point where people no matter where you are, you can pick up your deck and go play in something that excites you every week.
Makes sense. Well, thank you, Ben. Thank you, Elaine, for tuning in. Thank you all for tuning in. We are going to leave you with a little something for... We're
I
going to
can
get that back.
see you. Like, right here.
It's broadcast to the world.
Everybody can
We're
see
going to
you.
get that back. This weekend, don't forget, Mythic Championship 7 is happening. This is the capstone event of the year. There's a lot
So much
at
on the
stake.
line. So much. And to your point, this is probably one of the more exciting moments
Yeah.
for esports this year.
There's
where we-
so much on the line this
Oh
weekend.
my
It's
God.
incredible.
MPL rivals,
It's incredible.
7 spots at the World Championship, not to mention just, the actual prizes and everything.
And
for
the
this.
format looks so good.
It does, yep.
It looks so good. The deck lists are out.
The deck lists are
metagame
out.
breakdown.
It is-
Yep.
oh.
You can go to magic.gg for all of those.
Yeah.
They're also linked from the front of
It's
Daily
funny.
MTG.
A while ago, we're looking at the end of the year and just how the tournaments got sequenced, and we're like, we're going to hit the end of the year, and we've got these 3 MCs in a row.
Yeah.
Like, how are we going to make them feel different? There you go.
We found a
Done.
We found it, I guess.
So anyway, we're going to leave you with something for NC7. Make sure you tune in. It's right here on twitch.tv/magic starting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time, which if you're watching from another time zone is approximately 6 hours earlier than whatever time it is right now. So yeah, do the math. Whatever time it is now, minus 6 hours. Tune in at that time tomorrow, twitch.tv/magic for Mythic Championship 7. And we will see you next week.